Welcome to the First Cut Podcast, the Corrales Puntacana Resort and Club Championship preview. Joining me today, Mark Immelman and Kyle Porter. Mark, what's up?
Hey, man, how are you?
Doing great.
I must apologize if I have to blow my nose. I have my tissue handy. It's because I've had another COVID test this morning. All good, so we're good. But do forgive me for the runny nose.
Kyle, what's up?
Well, I didn't have a COVID test, thankfully. It would be tough for broadcasters if this event was sponsored by somebody or presented by somebody. I mean, the name is long enough as it is. Imagine if it was like presented by the American Express Company or something. It would be brutal.
I had to laugh, Greg, when you introduced it, and the inflection was on "and Club Championship."
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy saying the full name. It's always a good time. Fortunately, there's, well, I guess you could look at it any way you want, but fortunately, there's no sponsor in the name, no presented by. But this event, and Rick and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, it's on the rise. It started off as a Corn Ferry Tour event, and then in 2018, it's elevated to an opposite field PGA Tour event. It was opposite the match play, and now it's a full FedEx Cup points PGA Tour event. So for this event, even though it's coming right after a U.S. Open and right after a U.S. Open that happened after a FedEx Cup, it still is on the rise. So I think it should be an interesting event. There's definitely some stories to be told. But Kyle, when you look at an event like this, what are some of the things that you're watching for? What do you think the players are really what's the biggest opportunity they have in front of them this week?
Well, I think there's two things, and one, we were talking about this right before we came on, is it's sort of highlighted by getting into the Masters, but by the entryway into other events. If you win this, if a Will Zalatoris, who we're going to talk about a lot, if he wins this week, if he's in the Masters next year, he's playing the Tournament of he's getting into events that he wouldn't otherwise be in, because he's still on the Corn Ferry Tour because of the pandemic. So it's a really nice entry point. And then, I was thinking about this also with somebody like Zalatoris. I don't know how much he made on the Corn Ferry last year. I think he led the money list. It was probably, I don't know, 400 grand, something like that, which is,
I think it was like 430.
Okay. So good money, but not, it's probably not what he made for finishing T6 at the US Open. He probably made more than that in 1 week than he did on the entire Corn Ferry Tour. So I think there's an opportunity for somebody like him, somebody who's on, maybe not out there every week on the PGA Tour, to make some real money. That's the part we don't talk about as much, because we're focused on the guys that the money doesn't matter as much. But in a week like this, it does matter to some guys, and I think that's a real thing going into it.
Mark, when you look at that money, let's say a player like Will Zalatoris makes somewhere, I think I want to say it was 429,000. I think that's what I saw. So forgive me if I'm wrong, but when you look at a player out on tour, living the life of a Corn Ferry Tour player or even a PGA Tour player, how much of that are they taking home? I mean, it's expensive to travel the tour, isn't it?
It truly is. And then obviously there's the taxable implications of all this sort of stuff. But still, when you start getting yourself inside the 125, and incidentally, to build on Kyle's point, my take, and I'm not being the corporate guy here, but with 500 FedEx Cup points on offer to the winner, which was never the case here. I think it was 300 the last few times it's been around. That is essentially guaranteeing you a playoff run. And you speak of money, all of these guys' contracts, and a lot of the players in the field don't have the guaranteed numbers. They've all got incentivized contract numbers, and they'll have a small retainer, if you will, and then a bunch of bonuses built in if you do this and if you achieve that and if you make it into the playoffs, because that's where stuff starts meaning something. So for a few guys here who might not be guaranteed playoff berths, you get in here, you make that money, which is helpful. I'm not discounting that. But then you guarantee yourself a playoff run. All of a sudden, you start to unlock those contractual obligations and those guarantees in your contract. And then the money starts becoming a thing. Because the truth of it for all of these guys, the on-course dollars for the blue chip guys that Kyle talks about, the four guys, incidentally, who are playing in this charity match, the pay at Payne's, at whatever that Payne's course is. These guys are making, I would say, probably 85% of their money off the course, if not more. Where the guys playing in this event, they're making 85% of their money on the course.
Yeah.
So you start doing this sort of stuff well, and you start making FedEx Cup points, and you get into playoffs, and you get into those special events, the Tournament of Champions, which is guaranteed bucks, all this sort of stuff, and guaranteed points. It starts to snowball. And Stuart Appleby once said to me many moons ago, he was like, it was amazing to him because he was on the cusp, inside the 65 number. If you're inside 65 in the world rankings, you get into basically everything. And he said, it's basically a cash grab and it's a points grab, and the thing proliferates itself because there's no cut. So you go in there, guaranteed money, guaranteed points and the like. And getting in there is hard. But once you're in there, you're kind of guaranteed for a while. And then he was on the cusp of falling out. And he was like, it's amazing now that I'm on the other side of that 65 number, how difficult life suddenly becomes. So it's a delicate dance, and there are a lot of expenses. But if you start to do well in these events and you guarantee yourself some starts, then you're on your way.
And just to reiterate on Kyle's point from earlier, producer Jacob did some fabulous research. Will Zalatoris made $403,978 last year for winning the money list on the Korn Ferry Tour. T6 at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, $424,000, 40. So
there you go.
Great call there, KP.
I'm just making numbers up in there.
Yeah.
But think about this, okay? Just minutes. We're all fortunate to do what we do. But if you're making $424,000 in a year, you're styling pretty much. I mean, anyone listening to this podcast will happily take that sort of deal. And yes, they pay big tax, and yes, they've got all these expenses, hotels, flights, blah, blah, blah. But still, at the end of the day, and I remember a mentor of mine always saying this to me when I was considering playing. He goes, if you could make a comfortable living and play golf, wouldn't you do so? And I was like, heck yes. Now, thankfully, I'm not having to play. There's a little less pressure in what I do. But still, for these guys, like, you do well on the Korn Ferry Tour, you're a PGA Tour guy inside the playoffs, you're living pretty nicely,
It's great to see, but Will Zalatoris, he's the favorite coming into this week, 12-1. He doesn't have full status on the PGA Tour yet. Here we are in his in a PGA Tour event, his second one in a row, coming off of the U.S. Open, and he is the betting favorite, 12-1 odds. On the Korn Ferry Tour, he had some great success. He hit 81% of his greens in the year, 11 straight top 20s, which is a Korn Ferry Tour record. He didn't miss a cut. He won. I think he had 10 top 10 finishes on the Korn Ferry Tour. So it was really a quite dominant performance. And Kyle, I want to get your thoughts on this because these players seem to come out so ready. We had Bryce Garnett won the regular season Korn Ferry Tour money list in 2017. Wins actually here at in Puntacana at the very next year in 2018. Then you have, of course, Sung Jae Im. We all know how that turned out. And then Scotty Scheffler wins the Korn Ferry Tour finals this year. So the play and is now Rookie of the Year. Both of those back-to-back Rookie of the Years coming fresh off the Korn Ferry Tour. So what do you make of that? Do you think when you look at Will Zalatoris, do you think he's really ready for the PGA Tour, or was last week just a hot week?
No, I think he's ready. Which, by the way, there had to have been some, and I get it. Like the PGA Tour is in a crappy spot with the pandemic and all this stuff. There had to be some way to get him, like not him, but whoever like led the Korn Ferry Tour onto the PGA Tour, right? Like how did that seems like a miss to me. If you're having to go 2 years with a guy that's, I don't know, a top 40 guy, Data Golf has him at number 24 in the world behind Tiger behind Tiger ahead of Tommy Fleetwood. Like he's really, really good. And it sounds weird right now, but think about where Scotty Scheffler's at right now. Think about where Sung Jae Im is at right now. Those guys were in basically the same spot that Zalatoris is in, where they're just killing on the Korn Ferry Tour, playing well in major championships. And then all of a sudden they pop up for a season on the PGA Tour and you're like, oh, this guy's unbelievable. To me, Greg, it goes back to we underrate how good the Korn Ferry Tour is. It's so good. I mean, it is unbelievable. And it's only getting better and younger with all these guys coming out of college and high school. I mean, Akshay Bhatia is, he's not on the Korn Ferry Tour, but he's 18 years old and he's really good. So I think we think about the PGA Tour and the European Tour being like the top two, and that's probably still true. But man, I think the Korn Ferry Tour is super underrated right now. And I think as a result of that, you get guys that come out of it that are underrated as well.
Mark, you have some experience with guys out on the Korn Ferry Tour. What do you think is and the PGA Tour, of course. What is the difference between a really good Corn Ferry Tour player and a PGA Tour player of any level? Maybe let's say a journeyman PGA Tour player like Scott Stallings.
I would say it's a little bit of everything. The difference between the Corn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour is just, firmness of golf courses, hole locations, that sort of thing. And then you play on the Corn Ferry Tour. It's a mindset of making birdies. It's a mindset of playing the aggressor the entire time. And you look at some of the cuts, it's pretty consistent on the Corn Ferry Tour that you get what we did after the lockdown in the pandemic, where we had a stretch of 5 or 6 events where the cut was 4 or 5 under par. And that's pretty standard operating procedure on the Corn Ferry Tour. So these guys come out with a mindset of playing aggression. And in the modern day game on the PGA Tour, the truth of it is, back to a win like this week or a couple big finishes and get in the playoffs, you just really kind of need to strike it big 1 or 2 weeks a year, maybe get that victory, and you're setting yourself up for maybe not life, but you're setting yourself up. So that's why I feel like these players are coming out, because it's the mindset they adopt when they attack the PGA Tour. The players of yesteryear on the tour, they would come in with an apprentice sort of a mindset. They'd have to learn the courses. They'd have to learn from the older statesmen. They had to sort of ply their way and ply their trade and learn the craft. These guys are learned in college. The Corn Ferry Tour, they get out and they learn to play professional golf. They learn to travel. They learn to deal with the upheaval of all that sort of stuff, so the off-course stuff. And by the time they get to the tour, they are primed, they're ready to win, but most importantly, they're ready to shoot low. And to me, I would almost say, and I can't quote anyone on this, this is just my sense, that failure for the Corn Ferry grad is not that big a deal, because the Corn Ferry Tour is a bit of a grind. So when you get out there and you're playing for big bucks on nice courses and stuff, you miss a few cuts. I don't think it's the end of the world for most of these guys, because they know I can go. I've seen the low scores. I've just got to do this 1 week at the right time, and I'm going to be okay.
I always call it the 80-20 rule, where you make 80% of your dollars and 20% of your starts on tour. And there are times where that pushes more like 90-10, and you make almost all your money in very, very few events. This is the kind of week where we see players make that kind of become reality, especially when maybe in today's day and age, it's a currency. The currency is FedEx Cup points. You're going to see guys rack up a lot of their they have the opportunity to rack up a lot of FedEx Cup points for the year in just one start. Do you think, Kyle, that for an Akshay Bhatia, that mindset holds true? Or do you think because he's playing on special invites, so this week he's playing because he came in the top 10 at the Safeway, do you think that mindset has to change for him? Does he have to play a little more conservative, try to make more cuts, or can he be aggressive? Is a missed cut not a big deal for him either?
It's tough, because I do think somebody like him and somebody like, think about Norman Jong coming out a couple years ago. They probably are taking the long view of like, hey, it's going to be 20 years, it's going to be 25 years. And yet you only have so many sponsor exemptions, right? And so you would love to win one of those, or keep top 10ing to maybe play your way into temporary status. So I think you're gonna fail if you don't take the long view, right? You're just, if you don't have some sort of perspective, you're not gonna have much success for a very long time on the PGA Tour. But I do think there's some like, hey, go do the Jordan Spieth thing, go do the Victor Hovland thing, go do the Matthew Wolff thing, where you get sponsor exemptions, you win a tournament, or you get enough money to get that status and get on tour. That's real, And so I think it's probably more the like, get after it a little bit in your 7 events, in your, even for somebody like Zalatoris, who's not getting sponsor exemptions, but has very few PGA Tour opportunities. Hey, win one and then get out there. I think guys guys like that, I think, are going out and trying to, there's more of an impetus in this week than there would be for somebody who's got his status on tour.
If I might build on that, please, Greg. Carl makes a good point, but the truth of it is, it's been less than a handful of guys that have made enough in their 7 starts to earn PGA Tour privileges. I mean, we make it sound like it's easy. You're playing in even events like this, which is a weaker field. There's some grizzled vets out there that can go, and they're not going to back down for some youngster. So I think it's a blend of caution and aggression. But I also want to say that Spieth won, but then Justin Thomas had to do a year on the Corn Ferry Tour. So I think, like Kyle's point, you've got to have a bit of a long sort of a mindset about you, and you get yourself into weekends. I wouldn't say you go out and you play willy-nilly Thursday, Friday. You get yourself in the weekends because that's, again, when they sign checks and stuff like that. And with a Bhatia, for argument's sake, I mean, we have all seen he can shoot low. So all he's got to do is get himself into 7 weekends, do something special once or twice, and then he's pretty much on his way. Sort of like a Victor Hovland did. You make all the cuts you play, and then you have 2 big finishes and you're on your way.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. It's very rare that it happens. It's Rahm, right? Rahm did it, Spieth, the 3 guys last year. But I do think that somebody like Zalatoris looks at, okay, well, I played against Morikawa in college. I played against Hovland in college. I was the ACC Player of the Year. It's becoming, I mean, the trend is that it's becoming more frequent. Now, maybe the 3 guys last year was sort of and Hovland actually, I think, had to go to the Corn Ferry Finals.
He did.
So maybe the other 2 guys, I don't know. It does seem like there's more of maybe even a mindset trend in that direction. Whereas 8 years ago, 15 years ago, there just wasn't as much.
The guys I can think of that have done it, to speak to Mark's point about how rare it is, you're looking at Spieth and Rahm, as you said, Kyle. Bryson was able to do that. And then Joaquin Neiman and the 2 kids last year. Those are really that's really it. So
all stars, right?
Stars. Yeah. These are guys that are not really worried about that top 65 mark. They are, maybe we're getting to a point where Jordan Spieth is. Yeah, exactly. But for a long time, that was not a concern of his.
Well, to that as well, our current Rookie of the Year in Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah.
And do a stint on the Corn Ferry Tour. And, just certain players' games are ready. In other players' games, even though they come out with a great mindset and they've got all the tools, those tools just need a little sharpening, and the game just needs a little, easing off around the rough edges, then you're on your way. And so that's where doing these events, I think, for a potential star, can sort of highlight to you, okay, where do I still need to clean things up a little bit? And then you work on that area. Perhaps you're on the Corn Ferry Tour for a while, and you just continue to improve as a player, and you just shave those little bits off each part of the game, and then you're on your way. So again, to Kyle's point, I think a long view of it is great. And if you happen to make it through, well, good for you.
An event like this, there's it seems like it's kind of an off week, yet at the same time there are so many storylines that I'll be paying attention to. But we're going to get to some fun stuff. Is Will Zalatoris' game really ready? Are we ready to put our money where our mouths are? Well, we're going to find out. But first, let's take a break and hear a word from our partner. All right, time for matchups. And we're going to kick right off here with Corey Connors at -120 versus Will Zalatoris +100. Mark, start with you. Who do you like?
Paspalum grass, to me, it sort of disguises putting skill. And we all know Corey Connors, if there's a weakness, it's on the greens. But you got a place in this the resort, Puntacana Resort, where I promised myself I was going to say it. That name for the final 3 holes, the Devil's Elbow. That's right up my alley. I like that.
That's sweet.
Yeah, okay. So, to get around the Devil's Elbow with a little pressure on you, you better be able to hit the ball through the wind, which is what Corey Connors does. So long-winded, I'm going for Connors.
Having a name like the Devil's Elbow on a golf course, what a great logo opportunity you could have. Right?
Yeah, that's way better than the bear pit or the bear trap, snake pit, whatever. Yeah. Devil's Elbow is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty. That is. It sounds daunting. Kyle, who do you like?
I'll go Zalatoris just because of the odds. Corey Connors should play great here and is probably better overall than Zalatoris just because he's more seasoned. But I like Zalatoris at +100.
I'm taking Zalatoris too. I think he's ready. And look, I always go for guys who are playing well, and he's been playing great at all these different levels. So
is this at all like a Will Gordon type thing? Remember Will Gordon popped up at Travelers?
Yeah.
And then the next week we were all like, oh, we've got to watch out for Will Gordon at Detroit. And then he hasn't done anything since. Do you
I think it's different. Look, for Will, this has been a whole year, right? He didn't miss a cut on the court. I have not seen very often a player win the money list on the Corn Ferry Tour and not miss a cut. It's typically, to what we were saying before the break, it's boom or bust. And He just has played great every single week. I don't see any sign that it stops, and it's more than just last week.
The pedigree's there too, right? He won the I think it was the Junior Am. It's not like, oh, he had a good year. He's had like 9 good years in a row. So
right. So I'm all in on him. But Kyle, we'll come right back to you. Sepp Straka -110, and your boy Ventura, Christopher Ventura -1.
I didn't know that I would ever be picking a matchup between Christopher Ventura and Sepp Straka, but I'll go O State here. I'll go with Ventura.
Okay, I like it. Mark?
I'm sort of leaning that way. Look, Straka's improved and he's impressive to watch, but if you play golf down in South Florida, you can deal with wind, and the wind's going to blow this week, so I'm going with Ventura.
Real quick, can we talk just for a second about the fact that Oklahoma State team in 2018 had Ventura and then 2 guys that just finished top 15 at a U.S. Open at Winged Foot? What are you supposed to do against that?
But they didn't win the title, did they?
They did in Stillwater, yeah.
I think that. What do you do against that? I think you maybe redshirt next year. Hope Mark's your coach. I don't know. You can't beat that.
No, it's a joke. It's stupid.
Well, all that being said, I'm going to go Sepp Straka. He played pretty well. T14 at the Safeway Open. I think he's in good form. I think it's a good golf course for him, and I think he's a really talented player. Same with Ventura, but I'm going to go with Straka here. I think he's going to have a great week. Next on the list, Mark, we'll come right back to you. Thomas Dietrich and Matthias Schaub. Who do you think? Who do you like?
Hard one to pick. They're both impressive. I mean, I love the look of Schwab's game, but there's something about Dietrich that it's intriguing to me. You know, the way he plays, the way he constructs rounds, the way he hits it. So Thomas Dietrich.
I think I agree. I'm going to go with Thomas Dietrich as well. And Schwab is impressive, no doubt. But I think Dietrich is going to have a really nice week. Kyle, who do you like?
Yeah, Dietrich played well. I think it was one of the first couple of rounds at the U.S. Open. I'm going to go with him. I hate that we're all picking the same guy, but I'll go with Thomas Dietrich.
Yeah, I almost feel like in this situation, I want to just tag on with Mark here, follow him along. He's going to do that to me in the one and dones. I think we ought to start doing it here in the matchups because he's been impressive. Kyle's
he's been
this week too, but
yeah,
Mark's
Mark's consistency. Consistency. He's like Kuchar. You're just like, you made $8 million. You made $8 million this year. How'd you do that?
And we didn't even talk about you.
Yeah,
just steady Eddie. Okay, Kyle. Next on the list, I think this is another good one here. Adam Long and Mckenzie Hughes, both -110.
Yeah, I like Mac Hughes generally, and especially on tough golf courses, which this is not. You know, he just he played so well at a place like Olympia Fields, the Honda Classic. Like, these are difficult golf courses that he finds success on. So I'm going to go away from him at an easier course and go with Adam Long.
Okay, I'm not going to go before Mark anymore. So, Mark, who do you like?
Well, the points that Kyle made are the reasons why I'm going to go for Mckenzie Hughes. Those golf courses he lists, like the Honda Classic, the wind pumps around that place and it's crosswind. BMW in Chicago was the same deal, hard golf course, you had to hit it. And Mckenzie Hughes has won down at the RSM Classic in Georgia, in a cold, sort of windy environment when he had his win. And there's trouble on either sides of the fairway down in Davis Love's place there too. So I'm all in on Hughes. The guy hits a heavy ball through the wind, and I feel like he may play well this week.
And I think he's really rising in his confidence, which
yeah.
I like, even though he narrowly missed the cut at Winged Foot. I think it's easy as a player to say, okay, look, U.S. Open didn't go great, but that was brutally hard. You can convince yourself that it wasn't you. It was the course. The course was just a little crazy. You got bad break. You can convince yourself that you're still playing great. So I'm going to go with Mckenzie Hughes here. It's not because I'm just copying Mark. He was one of my core guys last week at the U.S. Open, and he let me down a little bit. And if he gets me again, I'm going to go down swinging. So I'm going Mckenzie Hughes. Let's jump to Emiliano Griot and Adam Shank. I'm going to go with Griot here. I think he, kind of like Mckenzie Hughes, as Mark was saying, he hits a heavy ball. He's a great iron player. Fourth so far this year in strokes gained approach the green, even though he's only played the Safeway Open. Last year, he was 13th as well. So he's a really, really good iron player. I think it's going to bode well for him this week. And he's had some good performances. I want to say he was tied second in Puerto Rico last year, which these two courses seem to have a lot of crossover. Mark, who do you like?
Grillo. I love where the game's going under Chris Como's tutelage, counsel, I should say. And Grillo's the kind of guy, he's not the greatest putter in the world, but again, on the green, the greens aren't too complicated. And so I feel like he'll be okay. So give me Grillo.
Kyle?
I'll go with Shank just to go against you guys, and because you're getting good odds there. So just I like Griot better, but I'm just zigging.
Minus 120 for Grillo and plus 100 for Shank. So taking the odds. I like it, Kyle. So that's it for our matchups. And it's time for expert picks. And you guys are the experts. So let's hear it. We'll start with top 10. Mark, you have a player on here on the rundown who played really well at the Safeway Open. And I thought heading into the final round, he was going to be the guy to beat. Who do you like this week as your top 10 lock?
I could not take my eyes off this guy when I had his group at the workday in the final round, playing around Jack Nicklaus's place. Sam Burns just hits, he hits the cover off the thing. And when he hits it, you can almost hear the spin on the ball as the paint's just dripping off the thing. He grips the ball in the face so hard. And so control of spin with some crosswinds is going to be crucial. He's long as anything off the tee. And I think it's a matter of time before we talk about Sam Burns a lot, but I feel like he makes some hay this week.
He hits it a long way. He really does. It's impressive to watch. Kyle, who do you like? Top 10.
Top 10, I'm going Zalatoris. I want to pick him to win. I am probably going to use him for my one and done because this might be one of the only PGA Tour events he plays in, or one of the few, not the only. So he'll be in a few others probably as well. But he's a top 10 machine. I mean, you hit the nail on the head on the Korn Ferry Tour. 10 top 10s on the Korn Ferry Tour is no joke. They only played 5 months. So I'll go with him as my top 10.
I'm going to go with, and I love the Will Zalatoris pick. Spoiler alert. I guess we can guarantee he's going to come up once more for the one and done lean. But my top 10 lock this week is Sepp Straka. I think you're going to see a guy who played well 2 weeks ago at the Safeway play well again in a field that he should feel like he can really contend in. And I think you're going to see his name near the top of the leaderboard all week long. Great driver of the golf ball and a great putter as well, which I think is going to work out really well around here. Let's get to some sleepers. I'll start with my own. I like Beau Hossler this week. Beau is a guy who we don't see a whole lot of. He's a long hitter, but he struggles off the tee because of accuracy. And I think the wide fairways are going to be really advantageous for him so far this week. He averages like 308 yards off the tee, which is really long. It's going to be an advantage. Iron play hasn't been great. But on these past Palom greens, I think you're going to see some greens that are rather receptive. And I think that's going to help a guy like Beau and allow him to utilize his real strength, which is his putting. He is a top 24 putter, all 3 of his full seasons on the PGA Tour. So, he's been inside the top 5 as well. So he's an elite putter. And I think this week he's going to get a lot of opportunities to putt. Kyle, let's go to you. Your sleeper, who do you like?
I'm looking at this field is kind of good, right?
There's some players.
Yeah,
good.
Obviously, you compare it to the U.S. Open, and you're like, okay, whatever. But you keep going down the list. You got Brandon Hagee at 125. You got Peter Uihleins in the field. Kevin Chappell is 90-1. Hossler at 8. I thought Hossler would be like 45, not 80-1. So yeah. I'll go with somebody we talked about earlier. Akshay Bhatia is 125-1, coming off the Safeway top 10. I think that it's hard to get. I think the talent is there, and that's what you're looking for at that number, right? Is there some win equity? Is there some value there for somebody who has the talent to go out and win the tournament? Is he going to win the tournament? Probably not. Might he miss the cut again? He's only made 1 in his PGA Tour career for sure. But I like that big of a number in terms of what the talent could be. So I'll go with Akshay.
He definitely has the club head speed to do it. I mean, he hits it a long way.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great pick. Mark, your sleeper, 150 to 1. Really long shot here. Who do you got?
I've got a guy who's won down in the islands. My boy Scott Brown, former client of mine way back in the day. Scott lives in Aiken, South Carolina, putts Bermuda greens a bunch, and he's won in Puerto Rico. In fact, I think his record in Puerto Rico has been sublime. I don't think he's ever missed a cut down there. So he's the kind of guy that when you get him on Bermuda, especially grainy stuff like this, that he really thrives. And maybe a little island air and a few of those drinks with umbrellas in them will kind of help him to find some form. So I think Scott Brown may go well.
Well, there's only one problem with that, Mark, and it's that he won in Puerto Rico. And that's a curse. Maybe we slide him over as a top 10 play, maybe a top 5 play, but it'll be interesting to see. I like the pick. So I guess we got to get to picks to win. Now it's time to really put it on the table. I'll start. I'm going to go with Will Zalatoris to win at 12 to 1. He is the favorite. I think he's the favorite for good reason. And I don't think these guys need to get their feet wet anymore. There's no more dipping your toes in the pool to see how it is. I think he's going to dive right in and contend and win. I don't think there's a player in the field who's playing as well as him. There's nobody in the field more confident than him. And for that reason, I think he's the best player in the field. So that's why you see him at 12 to 1. There's a good reason for it. I like the odds, and I think he's going to get the job done this week.
Jacob, would you timestamp that, please? That statement that we've just been making, best player in the field, all this sort of stuff. That's some lofty praise over there.
Yeah.
Kyle made the point. This is
good.
a good field.
I know it is. I'm not discrediting the field at all. I look at his recent form and compare it to some of these other guys, and nobody's been playing as well. He's been rough. I mean, he has got to be so confident right now, and that's the type of player that I fear is the really confident player, which he is.
Who would you have ahead of him, Mark?
I'm going to go for Mckenzie Hughes. I'm picking Hughes to win. He's been galvanized in fire over the last few weeks. Yeah, made a run in the playoffs, showed serious gumption to advance to Eastlake. When he got to Eastlake, you could see he was out of gas a little bit, but then he had a little time off, and the U.S. Open didn't go so well. But the way he hits it, there's a guy playing with some confidence there too. He's won on the PGA Tour, so he knows how to deal with it. So my pick to win is Mckenzie Hughes.
Yeah, I like Mac Hughes. I think he's a good player. I think Zalatoris long term is probably better. I don't know. Corey Connor's a good player. I mean, there are good players. I think Zalatoris is I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't translate. We've seen guys where it doesn't translate to the PGA Tour. But I'm going to go a little bit farther down. Somebody we talked about earlier who's had a really good run. Christopher Ventura. He goes T15 at the Nationwide Children's Hospital. That's the event. I think that's the event that Bryson won like 6 years ago. Yeah. He goes T7 at the Safeway, and he really struggled to start the year. He had like 4 or 5 missed cuts in a row on the PGA Tour. Goes back down to Korn Ferry, finds a bunch of success, finishes T4 right after the the pause at the Korn Ferry Challenge at Sawgrass. He's playing well. He's only missed 1 cut since the tour returned. So yeah, I'll go with him. I think he's 35 to 1, 30 to 1, something like that.
35. And he had, you think there's a little scar tissue from the Safeway Open? He contended there. He had a real shot going into the, either through 36 or through 54 holes. He had a real chance.
Yeah, that happened to him a couple years ago on the Korn Ferry Tour where I think he lost in a playoff. Something happened, and then he came back a couple weeks later and won. So I like the direction that he's going in. So yeah, I'll pick him this week.
Hey, Greg, seeing as Kyle brought these awesome numbers and statistics to back up his argument, my selection, he was the runner-up here last year, if memory serves. So
he was T2.
Yeah.
So Mckenzie Hughes, please.
Clutch. I had forgotten about that when I picked against him in matchup, so I might need to revisit that off air, Jacob.
Oh, you were playing the anti-theory.
I know.
You have to win this. I'm going to remember this because if you win the matchups this week, I'm going to be like, well, there was no skill involved there whatsoever. You just went.
He's just betting that you're wrong, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
As a betting man, I mean, you're going to get some good odds betting against Mark in matchups. But so best bets, and you can't bet that Kyle's going to be wrong or that Mark's going to be wrong. We got to get a bet here from the field. So who do we like? I'll go first here. I think the best bet of the week is actually Kyle's bet, Will Zalatoris top 10. I've already stated my case, how confident I am in his play. I'm sure it's going to continue. And you get him at plus 150 for a top 10. So I think it's a great bet. Kyle, what say you?
I like Corey Connors top 20. He's minus 110, which is not a very good number, but for somebody of his ball striking capability in a lesser field like this, he should finish in the top 20, whether he putts well or not. So I like him at minus 110.
Mark?
Well, here's where I'm showing that I don't know much about gambling. And I found this matchup curious. I mean, you've got Mateus Schwab versus the biggest name in the field, Henrik Stenson, major champion, FedEx Cup champion, winner around the world. And they're even odds. And I feel like Schwab is going to dust Henrik Stenson this week. So give me the rookie against the vet.
Love it.
Hey, I like it. I like it. I think Stenson's advantage and what is asked of Stenson, what he does so well that separates him in a typical year is his ability to hit fairways. And the fairways are so wide this week, that advantage goes away a little bit. So I don't think that's a bad pick at all, Mark. So
both they're betting at the same number, which was minus 110, I think it was.
Yeah. I think that's strong. I like it. Any final words, KP? Any final words? Are you on to live blogging?
Well, there's a lot going on right now. Are we doing one and dones?
Oh yeah. I forgot about one and dones. Go ahead with your one and done lean. I guess you already gave it to us.
Yeah, Zalatoris. I'm probably not gonna. Well, I say this. I'm probably not gonna use him again throughout the year. So I'll go with him here.
Mark?
I don't know for sure, but I'm between Griot and Mckenzie Hughes. So I don't know, right?
Okay, that's a good lean.
I like both of them. I like Griot here. I think that would be good.
It's a good fit for him, no question. Well, as much as I've said about Will Zalatoris, I'm going to go with him. I agree with you, Kyle. I'm not sure you're going to have an opportunity to use him throughout the rest of the year. I'm going to take him right here. So he is definitely my lean for one and done. I guess what do you call that? A definitely maybe. But I think that's it.
Because don't go changing now.
Yeah.
I'm cupping you up to here. I think I'm just nose ahead of you after this week.
How about this? We'll take it out of my hands. Producer Jacob, it's Will Zalatoris for me. It's not a lean. It's a lock. Throw away the key. Well, boys, thank you so much for joining. Always a pleasure. Always great to talk a little golf with you gentlemen. Even in an event like this, the knowledge that you guys bring is awesome. And it's great to hear the passion and the consideration. So love being a part of it. We're going to be around all week. You're going to have round by round coverage Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Each round, you can hear it right here on the First Cut Pod. So make sure you listen and subscribe. You can also get us on YouTube each and every episode. So make sure you do that. That's Mark Immelman. You can get him on Twitter at Mark_Immelman. That's Kyle Porter. You can get him on Twitter at Kyle Porter CBS. I'm Greg Ducharme at The Real GFD. That's it for the First Cut. We'll see you next time.